Hey there, guys. This is Mr. B again, and I'm just going to read to you our story for this week that we'll work on. Just so that we can work on our little stories. This is just the first time going through, and I just wanted to read it to you. So you can just sit back and listen. You don't necessarily need to look at the screen and read the words with me, but that's good too if you choose to do that. Hopefully as we go on, I'll be able to add more exciting features to all this, but right now just trying to get everything done for Monday, and then I can make sure that after that we are able to make things more exciting and interesting once we get a bit ahead in our schedule. So today we're going to read Balmung and Greyfell. At Saturn, in the lowlands, there once lived a young prince named Siegfried. His father, Sigmund, was king of a rich country, and he was known both far and near for his good deeds. Siegfried's mother, the gentle Sigurlind, was loved by all for her goodness of heart and her kindly charity to the poor. Neither king nor queen left aught undone that might make the young prince happy or fit for life's usefulness. Wise men were brought from far-off lands to be his teachers, and each day something was added to his store of knowledge or his stock of happiness. And very skillfully did he become in warlike games and in manly feats of strength. No other youth could throw the spear with such great force or shoot the arrow with surer aim. No other youth could run more swiftly, or ride with more becoming ease. His gentle mother took delight in adding to the beauty of his matchless form by clothing him in costly garments decked with the rarest jewels. One would have thought that the life of the young prince could never be aught but a holiday, and that the birds would sing and the sun would shine forever for his sake. But the business of man's life is not mere pastime, and none knew this truth better than the wise old King Sigmund. "All work is honourable," he said to Siegfried, "and he who yearns to win fame must not shun toil. Even princes should know how to earn a livelihood by the labour of their hands." And so, while Siegfried was still a young lad, his father sent him to live with a smith called Mimer, whose smithy was among the hills not far from the great forest. And this smith, Regan, was a wonderful master, the wisest and most cunning that the world had ever seen. Men said that he was akin to the dwarf folk that ruled the earth in the early days, and they said that he was so exceeding old that no one could remember the day when he came to dwell in the land of Sigmund's father. To Regan's school, where he would be taught to work skillfully and to think wisely, Siegfried was sent to be in all respects like the other pupils there. A coarse blue blouse and heavy leggings and a leathern apron took the place of the costly clothing which he had worn in his father's dwelling. At the dainty bed with its downy pillows, wherein every night his mother had seen him safely covered, was given up for a rude heap of straw in the corner of the smithy. And the rich food on which he had been used gave place to the coarsest and humblest fare. But the lad did not complain. The days which he passed in the smithy were mirthful and happy, and the sound of his hammer rang cheerfully, and the sparks from his forge flew briskly from the morning till night. And a wonderful smith he became. No one could do more work than he, and none wrought with greater skill. The heaviest chains and the strongest bolts were but as toys in his stout hands. So easily and quickly did he beat them into shape. And he was alike cunning in work, of the most delicate and brittle kind, ornaments of gold and silver, studded with the rarest jewels, were fashioned into beautiful forms by his deft fingers. And among all of Regan's apprentices, none learned the master's law so readily or gained the master's favour so quickly. Now Siegfried longed to be like the heroes of old, and he begged Regin to make him a sword, that he might have a weapon to go into the world with and right wrongs. So Regin, with his heart full of hope, went to his task, and for 7 days and 7 nights the sparks never stopped flying from his forge, and the ringing of his anvil and the hissing of the hot metal as he tempered it were heard continuously. On the 8th day the sword was finished, and he brought it to Siegfried, who felt the razor edge of the bright weapon, and said, This seems indeed a fair edge. Let us make a trial its temper. With that Siegfried raised the sword and brought it down with mighty force upon the anvil, which it shivered into 1,000 pieces. So Regin went back to work, and again made a sword, and again Siegfried broke it upon the anvil. This happened again and again, till one day Siegfried went home and told his mother how he could not find a sword strong enough for him to wield. Then with great care she brought to him a cloth bag, and in it a wondrous sword which was broken in two. This, she explained, was once your father's sword. Take it and forge it anew. Then Siegfried went and welded the sword in a white-hot fire, and tempered it with milk and oatmeal. For 7 weeks the lad wrought day and night at his forge, and then, pale and haggard, but with a pleased smile upon his face, he stood before Regin, with the gleaming sword in his hands. "It is finished," he said. "Behold the glittering terror, the blade Balmung. Let us try its edge and prove its temper." Siegfried raised the blade high over his head, and the gleaming edge flashed hither and thither, like lightning's play when Thor rides over the storm clouds. Then suddenly it fell upon the master's anvil, and the great block of iron was cleft in two. But the bright blade was no whit dulled by the stroke, and the line of light which marked the edge was brighter than before. Then to the flowing brook they went, and a great pack of wool and fleeces of 10 sheep were brought and thrown upon the swirling water, and the stream bore the bundle downwards, and Regin held the sword in its way, and when the wool floated against the sword, the bundle was divided cleanly in two. "Well done!" cried the delighted smith. Never have I seen a keener edge." Then Siegfried begged for Regin. "Tell me, wisest of masters, what shall I do to win fame and make myself worthy to rule the fair land which my fathers held?" Regin replied, "Go forth to right the wrong, to punish evil, and come not back until the world knows your noble deeds." "But whither shall I go?" asked Siegfried. "I will tell you," said Regin. "Gird yourself this sword, the good Balmung, and go northward. When you come to the wastelands with the border upon the sea, you will find the ancient Gripir, the last king of the giants. Ask of him a war steed, and Odin will tell you the rest." So when the sun had risen, Siegfried bade Regin good-bye, and went forth like a man to take whatsoever fortune should betide. He went through the great forest and across the bleak moorlands, beyond and over the huge black mountains, and came to a pleasant country dotted with farmhouses and yellow with waving corn. But he tarried not here. Right onwards he went, until he reached the place where the high mountains stood, and there in the deep dales between the mountains were the rich meadows green with grass, where herds of cattle and deer and untamed horses fed in undisturbed peace. And Siegfried, when he saw, knew that these were the pastures of Gripir the Ancient. High among the grey mountain peaks stood Gripir's dwelling, a mighty house made of huge boulders brought by giant hands from far Northland. But Siegfried was not afraid. He climbed the steep pathway with feet of men, which the feet of men had never touched before, and without pausing walked straightway into the high hall. There he saw beneath a heavy canopy of stone the ancient Gripir. Very wise he seemed, and he gazed at Siegfried with a smile. "Hail, Siegfried," he cried. "Welcome to my lonely mountain home. Come and sit by my side in the high seat where man has never sat, and I will tell thee of things that have been and of things that have yet or that are yet to be." Then Siegfried fearlessly went and sat by the side of the Ancient One, and long hours they talked together, strong youth and hoariest age, and each was glad that in the other he found some source of hope and comfort. At last Gripir rose and said, "Thou hast not told me of thy errand, but I know what it is. Come with me and choose from my pastures a battle steed, and ride forth to win a name and fame among the sons of men." And Siegfried ran down the steep side of the mountain to the grassy dell where the horses were feeding. But the beasts were all so fair and strong that he knew not which to choose. While he paused, uncertain what to do, a strange man stood before him. Tall and handsome was the man, with one bright eye, and a face beaming like the dawn in summer. And upon his head he wore a sky-blue hood, bespangled with golden stars, and over his shoulder was thrown a cloak of ashen gray. Would you choose a horse, Siegfried?" "Indeed I would," answered he. "But it is hard to make a choice among so many." "There is one in the meadow," said the man, "far better than all the rest. They say that he came from Odin's pastures on the green hill slopes of Asgard, and that none but the noblest shall ride him." "Which is he?" asked Siegfried. "Drive the herd into the river," was the answer. "Then see if you can pick him out." And Siegfried and the stranger drove the horses down the sloping bank and into the rolling stream. But the flood was too strong for them, and some soon turned back to shore, while others, struggling madly, were swept away and carried out to the sea. Only one swam safely over. He shook the dripping water from his mane, tossed his head in the air, and then plunged again into the stream. Right bravely he stemmed the torrent the second time. He clambered up the shelving bank and stood by Siegfried's side. What need to tell you that this is the horse?" said the stranger. "Take him. He is yours. He is Greyfell, the shining hope that Odin sends to his chosen heroes." Then Siegfried noticed the horse's mane glimmered and flashed like 1,000 rays from the sun, and that his coat was as white and clear as the fresh fallen snow on the mountains. He turned to speak to the stranger, but he was nowhere to be seen, and Siegfried bethought him how he talked with Odin unawares. Then he mounted the noble Greyfell and rode with light heart across the flowery meadow. "Whither ridest thou?" cried Grippier, the ancient, from his doorway among the crags. "I ride into the wide world," said Siegfried, "but I know not whither. I would right the wrong and help the weak, and make myself a name on the earth, as did my kinsmen of yore. Tell me, I pray you, where I shall go, for you are wise, and you know the thing which have been, and those which shall befall." Ride back to Regan, the master of masters," answered Grippier. "He will tell you of a wrong to be righted." And the son of the ancient son of the giants withdrew into his lonely abode, and Siegfried on the shining Greyfell rode swiftly away towards the south. Okay, guys, I hope you enjoyed that story. So this legend, what happens here, right? We have the wonderful smith, the forging of his sword, Balmung, and then how Greyfell is chosen. So you have these three parts as it's divided up here. I know this is sideways, so it's a bit awkward, but just to quickly go over. So right, remember to go through your story, and in each section, you want to write down some main things of what happened in one simple sentence, for each. So you're going to have three little simple sentences that explain what happened here, and with the wonderful smith, and then explain what happened with the forging of Balmung, and then explain how Greyfell was chosen and how it came that he went to go and see Greyfell being chosen. So each of these sections, you want to write these things down. You're also going to need to go through your dictionary and check out these different words. Now, if you came across other words throughout here where you might have been a bit confused, I know there was some thous, right? Thou kind of means you in Old English. There wasn't too much of that, but there was one time or a few times. And then there was a few other words which I thought you might want to just check up. So if you don't understand a word, the best idea is to get a dictionary, open it up, and check it out. Now, you're also on the computer. Now, it could be possible for you to just Google the word. So you type it out in the top, you hit enter, and normally the first result, if you just have one word, is the definition of that word, if it's not a name or something, and then you'll get some information about a person with that name. But yeah, if you just type in a word, you'll normally find out things about that word. So that's really important. Now, the reason why this part is important is because in your story, when you rewrite the legend, you are going to need to use these words, each one of these, right? You can't just make up a story without using these words. You have to use these words. And the reason for this is to be able to use these words and to increase your vocabulary. And this part, plot 2, we were figuring out the plot. What is really important here is that you actually figure out how each part kind of worked out. Right? Because when you rewrite the story with your own kind of twist on it, you're going to want to make sure that you follow the story carefully. So a good way to do this is actually to break your whole project up, or when you're rewriting the story, break it up. And so you just focus on rewriting the first part, rewriting this part of the wonderful smith. Once you're done that, then you write the Balmung is forged, and then you write Greyfell is chosen. Now you want to make sure they all connect and it's not just completely separate, but make sure that it follows the story quite carefully. So maybe instead of a sword, he forges a gun or forges some giant lollipop saber. That part, you get some creative freedom in, but make sure that you keep the general story. The same is true for the character list. So you're just going to describe some of the main characters. Gives you a couple lines here. So you want to make sure you have Siegfried and maybe Sigmund. Maybe the mother, probably not. You could have the mother and father, I guess, as one. Then Regan as the master smith, Odin, and also the giant. So yeah, you want to make sure that you get it all down. And it was a really cool story. I liked it. I thought it was really exciting, so I hope you did too. So for today, the first day, we're just going to focus on reading the story, telling the story, and hopefully if you can, you get to working on this part, and this part. And then finally, you can work on the last part on Tuesday and Wednesday, where you write your first draft. And I want to make sure that this version of the story is done in 2 weeks, so we don't waste any time. So make sure you're working hard. It is fun to write stories, and so it's exciting, and you get to use your imagination, and I think it's a blast. I might provide you with an example of a story rewritten, just so you can get a feel, but we'll see if that happens. Anyways, guys, that's it for now. I hope you have a great Monday, and you've enjoyed it so far. Bye-bye. Cheers.